3, so I don't want to cut into Steve's time too much, but a very, very big thank you from us to Steve for his time, for agreeing to come on. Steve, thanks so much. We've had a lot of conversations over the years. We've worked quite closely on a number of different projects, and I've always enjoyed the talks and the discussions that we've had, and I've no doubt that this is going to be a great one. Steve is an international presenter. He presents all over the world and consults with a number of businesses, besides the fact that he also is the founder of ETA, Exercise Teachers Academy. And he's going to chat to us a little bit around mental toughness. I'm going to leave him to talk about the specific theme of today and to take us into his presentation. But I think without further ado, Steve, I'm going to hand over to you, and if you can kick us off and take us away.
Thank you, Deon. And as the first slide says, this episode of Black Mirror sucks for all of us. We all have a problem. Income dried up, social activity dried up. You know, my partner, Linda, Deon, she insists on a body length between us, or, to ensure that I don't get infected with anything. So it sucks. No exercise, no beach, no sport. It sucks. Mike Tyson says it best, former heavyweight champion of the world. Yeah, everyone gets stuck until they're punched on the nose, according to Mike Tyson. And we've been punched on the nose. Well, Darwin's advice is, and it's in his book, I hope you've read it. If not, those of you that don't read, you have no advantage over those that can't. Anyway, in his book, Origin of Species, his advice is the strongest will survive, but the most adaptive will thrive. Now, we've got to adapt. And I'm certainly trying hard to adapt using webinars. I'm used to standing in front of audiences. But where are you? Can't see you. Anyway, that's my problem. And the trick now, don't wait time to adapt. Adapt faster, adapt sooner. And my suggestion is, let's try and adapt by being mentally tougher, with mental toughness. And that's the subject for today. If you look at this curve, I'm saying you shouldn't flatten the curve, as they're saying for COVID. You must grow the curve and don't wait for the symptoms to occur. Now, symptoms, let's take heart disease. Symptom of heart disease is high blood pressure, over fat, high cholesterol, but that's wrong. It's not a symptom. And by the time you're that symptomatic, you are in trouble. If you react to the signs, you'll relaunch your curve, your performance curve, and you will grow the curve. And the signs of heart disease is when you didn't exercise, you ate badly, you had an attitude like a buffalo that's been thrown out of its herd. Those are the signs. You must react to the signs. But how on earth do you react to COVID-19? Because there weren't signs, as it were, for us. So COVID-19 is what they call a black swan. Very good book, Nazim Taleb's book on highly improbable events, black swans. And what do? Well, the rainfall in Cape Town that dried up is a black swan. So you get a Jojo. When Eskom cuts your power, you get a UPS. But when you get a virus, well, you can do things. You can stockpile. You can get an alternative income source. What else can you do? And that's your challenge today. So I suggest we must look at surviving, and that's what you're doing. You must be, because you're at the end of this webinar, and thriving through the 7 components of mental toughness. What does it mean to be mentally tough? Not just tough, according to Mike Tyson, mentally tough. The book I'm referring to in Red and Blue Oceans is Chan Kim's Blue Ocean Strategies. And again, I suggest you read this one. And to help you move out of what he calls red oceans, highly competitive, highly contested environments, where you've got sharks and so many boats around you, to blue oceans where you're untouchable, where you're on your own. It's a metaphor, of course. My question to you is, can you move to the blue, and how? Can you go from surviving to thriving? Check out how tough you are by comparing these 7 components of mental toughness we're going to talk about today. 7 of them. And the first one, I'll just give you some imagery and you might recognize him. If you don't, you've been sleeping. That's concentration, the first one. The second one will be composure. Probably remember her. Highly composed, highly successful lady, Charlize. Third, you probably don't know him, but I suggest he's probably the most famous South African at the moment. And here we've got controlled aggression. Trevor Noah, if you're a TV watcher, another wonderful South African, confidence. It wasn't hard to find these images, you know. We have such great South Africans. Elon Musk on calculated risks, our image. And Caster Semenya, what a wonderful athlete. Challenged, but wonderful, competent. And finally, Rampella. She is our commitment example. And if you don't recall her, she was Chancellor of UCT, but more importantly for you oldies, she was the former girlfriend of Steve Biko. So let's start with concentration. Nelson Mandela is our image. The first component is thriving, passion, surviving, success. And I've used Greta Thunberg. And my question to you is, what are you driven by? Are you driven by the need for success? Or are you driven by passion? Because Greta Thunberg, clearly driven by passion. At 16, she's going around the world, not right now though, missing school for a sustainable world agenda. That's passion. And my point is, if you're driven by passion, the chances of thriving so much better than simply wanting success. Second component in concentration is old versus new differentiators. All of you have got differentiators. That's what makes you survive, something unique about you. But you've got to find new ones. It's absolutely crucial that you create new differentiators to make you thrive. And I recall a few years ago, I was cycling in France, not the Tour de France. I'm not that type of cyclist. Trudgy cycling. I was cycling in France, and there's so many cows. Almost like sheep in New Zealand. There's so many cows. But after a while, you don't even see them. And Seth Godin claims, you've got to be a purple cow. You've got to stand out. And I want to help you with one offering to help you become a purple cow. Now, I'm not sure that sounds good, but you know what I mean. A uniqueness that makes you look different. And that's the National Performance Register. Brad Searle, who's on this webinar, if you contact him, will train you, teach you, certify you to use the National Performance Register, which means you can test your clients, put them on the cloud, and your client will know, oh my word, for ladies between 25 and 30, I am the strongest upper body person in Virgin Active Claremont, or in the country, or in the world. Now, there's no cost to that. We will, and the Poppy Act stops us giving you names of people you're better than or worse than. We simply let you know you're number 3, you're number 4 in this domain. Just to give you one of Brad's videos. Brad hooks you up. It doesn't have to be the tests that we prescribe. You can negotiate what tests you want, but it's better to do generic tests so as you get a decent comparison. Right now, I'm aware that he's talking to Deon and Pete, because you can't contact your clients, to help you offer your client a self-test. So the client checks how many press-ups they can do in a minute. And we will let them know how they do against the other people, against the NPR. Now, it's not scientifically verifiable, so we can't put it on the NPR, but it'll be in its own category. But the information will compare. But Brad can explain it at a later date. So let's move on with concentration. The next point is good preparation versus out-prepare. You know, in 1984, Daley Thompson won the decathlon. The journalists decided that the winner of the decathlon at the Olympics is going to be titled the world's greatest athlete. They approached Daley and said, now, why would you be called the world's greatest athlete? And he sort of was bemused and he said, well, maybe because I'm the world's best prepared athlete. The response was, pray tell, what does that mean? So I tell you what, and he looked at one of the journalists and said, if I'm competing against you and you train twice a day, I'll train 4 times a day. If I'm competing against you, and he looked at another journalist, and you're training 3 times a week, I'll train 6. And the final one, he says, and if I'm competing against you and you're training in the rain, I'll train in the snow. I know whenever I went to a competition, I was the best prepared athlete at that competition. Maybe that's why they call me the world's greatest athlete. You see, Deon and others, nobody can out-prepare you. Nobody. You can hide behind your gammy leg, your disadvantaged background. Nobody can out-prepare you. You must even prepare for a black swan, that rare event. And I know next time what I will have is a cellar full of wine. Definitely. Because I can't have the government telling me when I can or can't drink wine. And more things, I suppose. Let's move on to composure. Charlize Theron. The first point under composure is, are you affected by the change, by the COVID-19 or not affected? And clearly we're all affected, but how are you affected? That particular cricket team, that team, is affected by pressure. You put a trophy in front of them and sadly, they seem to choke. And when I do workshops with the coaches and they claim they don't, I have to refer them to this photograph. The basics of cricket is 1 on each side of the pitch. So how can you not be affected by COVID-19? Well, that's the question you must answer. People are still training. I'm still training. Help them. Second component under composure is medical health versus holistic wellness. Medical health, surviving. BP is good. Blood pressure is BP. Your blood scores are good. But have you got holistic wellness? And that's where you come in. As Virgin Active people, you provide holistic wellness. That's where people want to be. They want to thrive. In the book Trick or Treatment, you can read more about it for those that will read. Third component is you're not distracted by bad science. Distracted or not distracted. And this wonderful book by Ben Goldacre, who's an NHS doctor, looks at all the bad science that we get distracted by. It's an energy leak to us. You know, constantly we're on social media and we're confronted by people, reports that aren't properly researched. And essentially you have this thin crust of rationality covering a molten core of crazy. But we get distracted. And do you know that Bill Gates is saying we should have a chip under our skin so he can control us? Don't go there. You've got other things to do. You've got to get an income. You've got to make a difference in the world, as opposed to getting outraged and an energy leak because of Bill Gates. That's real fake news, not the stuff you're hearing about. Now we move on to controlled aggression. And what a wonderful example of controlled aggression. Sia and the Springbucks. And my first example is, do you keep up with change or do you accelerate into the future? Keep up or accelerate? Ada Hegerberg. Know her? Probably not. She was voted the world's best football player, female, in 2018. But she didn't play in the World Cup. Why? Because she protested against pay not being equal. Until you pay women the same as men, I am not playing. So when USA women's team got into the final, you can be forgiven for thinking the crowd was shouting, USA. No, they were shouting, future, and so she should. And of course, here we go. Are you combative or do you magnify your strengths? Combative, you're surviving. Magnifying your strengths, you're thriving. Now, the Springbucks did a great job winning the World Cup, but they did it with combativeness, and it was good enough on the day. Eddie Jones still has nightmares about our scrumming. He's even hired our forwards coach. But note that combativeness has got the Springbucks, and they're always the same. 63% win rate. The All Blacks, with magnifying their strengths, have got an 88% win rate. But we won the World Cup. That'll do. The final point on aggression is working hard versus outworking others. Do you work hard or do you outwork others? Do you have willpower? And maybe sounds corny, but Will Smith has willpower. He's famous for saying to other actors, you may be smarter than me, you may be sexier than me, but you will never outwork me. Just imagine we're in a competition. You on a treadmill, me on a treadmill. There's only two outcomes that are possible here. One, I'm going to win. Two, I'm going to die because I'm not getting off before you. Nobody can outwork you. Nobody. You can hide behind anything you like, but nobody can outwork you. Trevor Noah. The Daily Show, I think. It wasn't hard finding these people. South Africans got some wonderful examples. You could have your own of these things. And the first thing under confidence is Usain Bolt. And we're looking at surviving, arrogant, or thriving, integrity. Usain Bolt has integrity because he does what he says he's going to do. And you expect him to win, and he wins, even though it's only by inches. And if you saw that wonderful movie on Any Given Sunday, you'll understand how the inches make the difference between gold and nothing. No one. You don't remember anyone that didn't win. Who came fourth in the Tour de France last year? You don't know. Who came fourth in the 200 meters? You don't know. That's the bottom line. Integrity. The next component under confidence is, do you have a hero mindset? I'll sort it out. I'm the hero. I'll win. I'll make it right for you. I'll get rid of COVID. It's all good. It's magnificent. Or do you have a self-belief mindset? Now, 62 million voters believed, if you look at the cap, that he's a hero. He's going to make America great again. He's going to save them. He's going to save America from socialism. Not Che Guevara anymore. It's Joe Biden he's going to save them from. He's their lifeguard. And when they started talking about a lifeguard, that was personal. because I was a lifeguard forever. And I try to picture Trump as a lifeguard. And I gave that analogy, that example, to a bunch of coaches recently. And they said to me, well, yeah, I agree with you, Steve. It's hard to see him as a lifeguard. And the one coach piped up and said, but all I do know is that the girls on the beach mustn't stand too close. I have no idea what he meant. No idea. Ali had a self-belief mindset, not a hero mindset. I don't stop when I'm tired. I stop when I'm done. He claimed, I don't only want to be champion of America, but I want to be world champion, champion of Africa, champion of England, champion of Europe. But not just world champion. I want to be the best champion ever. So I kept on working until I did. Nobody can outwork you. Nobody. Elon Musk's introduced us to calculated risks. Elon Musk is a classic example of someone who takes risks. And I don't think you'll recognize this man, or you may. He's something, but he introduces us to cautious versus bold. Cautious, surviving. You don't get into much trouble. Bold, thriving. He said, when faced with an opportunity, grab it. Work out how to do it later. And if you wait until you're ready, you'll wait forever. So I want you to ask yourself, what opportunities are being presented to you with COVID-19? Instead of saying, well, that's it, we've got no customers. What are the opportunities? Don't wait forever. And Steve Jobs, the late Steve Jobs, wonderful man. Consistent or innovative? Are you consistent? Do you drive on time, produce the product, do the right thing? Or do you innovate? Do you improvise? Steve Jobs said, people don't know what they want until you show them. Don't constantly give them what they want. Show them what they need. Innovate. And on his deathbed, he said, you're going to regret far more the things you didn't do than the things you did. And I'm already regretting some of the things I didn't do. I'm actually regretting some of the things I did do too, but more the things I didn't. Here we move on to Henry Ford. And similar to Steve Jobs, satisfy wants, anticipate needs. Get it right, Steve. Anticipate needs, don't just satisfy wants. He claimed if I asked my customers what they wanted, they would have asked for a faster horse. We wouldn't have had a car. It's not just about asking your customers. It's about knowing. You're the expert. You're the person with the qualification. You must know what their needs are and then make sure they think they want it. Here we go with competence and the wonderful Caster Semenya. And again, I'm saying to you, a little bit of an ETA thing here. Are you learned versus do you unlearn and relearn? Because if you learn it, you'll survive. But if you unlearn and relearn, you will thrive. Qualified and experienced versus unlearning and relearning. You see, at ETA, we've now launched the degree in sport management, and we're soon to launch a degree in exercise. And I suggest to you, and by the way, your current qualification, you can come to us and we will use that as access to the degree study. And most of it will be online, so you won't have to, when you have a job again, mess with your job. But I can assure you, when you're looking for clients, the chances are they're going to say, I'll have the one with the degree. Freddie Mercury. My question to you, surviving, are you ahead in the race or are you ahead of the race? Now, most of us can be ahead in the race. We're in the front runners. But Freddie Mercury got ahead of the race because he eventually got to blue oceans where he was on his own. On his own. Are you on your own? He combined pop an opera. The management said, "What are you on about?" Well, he was on about thriving.
The danger element is exactly what we need. It's great for me because it makes you work harder and you just feel, it makes you keep on your toes. Otherwise it would be just too easy.
Galileo, Galileo, Galileo Figaro. Magnifico! I'm just a poor boy and nobody loves me.
I hazard to say, are you a Freddie Mercury? Can you get to blue oceans? Is there no one to compete against because of the way you've positioned yourself? And the final component, commitment. Steve Biko's former girlfriend. And we start off with J.K. Rowling. She gave a talk to Harvard commencement speech to Harvard Business School. And essentially the talk was, stop blaming, particularly your parents, but stop blaming, bounce back, move on. Now I ask you, are you blaming COVID-19 for your current circumstances? Or can you flow around it, over it, under it, like a river? Just flow, stop blaming. And my final example is about me. And it's about gritting and quitting. And as I said, I was a lifeguard forever. But my performance was becoming abysmal through injuries. I got my excuse. And I had to decide whether to continue trying to be some hero in a Speedo running around the beach or quit. And the definition of gritting versus quitting is when the pain of gritting exceeds the pain of quitting. But you see, quitting isn't something negative. Quitting is transferring your passion to something else, to your bucket list. And I decided to transfer my passion to writing, to speaking. And in the final slide, I say to you, that book will come to Deon. It'll contain far more than whatever time I've taken you, the half an hour or so, to speak to you. So I want to conclude, not by wishing you good luck. I want to conclude by wishing you develop your mental toughness. Then you won't need luck. My wish of luck anyway. You'll create your own. Deon, thank you.
Thanks so much, Steve. Really, really appreciate it. I think some absolute pearls of wisdom there. I think at this point, what I'd like to do is just open up the forum, the chat forum, to any questions that people might have. So I'm going to just talk for about a minute or two, and if you can send your questions through to Steve, what I'm going to do is I'm going to collate them and just one at a time just pose them to you, Steve.
Thank you.
I think, Steve, just from my side, I just sort of made a few notes here, and I think
are these the ones you said you're going to ask me beforehand? That I prepared for?
No, they're going to be very, very organic. This is just sort of a few notes that I've made. Look, just having listened to that, and it's very clear that from a inspiration perspective, you are very widely read. I mean, you've got reference. I missed writing down the first book that you spoke about, but there's Black Swan, there's Blue Ocean Strategy, Trickle Treatment, Bad Science. Steve, I want to ask you, how much of a role does reading play in terms of you coming up with ideas and concepts? I mean, do you just pick up the sort of the most current strategic book and try and get some advice from that and follow it, or is it a process that you work through in terms of coming up and collating your ideas?
Thank you. It plays a huge role. Now, recently, for some reason, I'm struggling to get enough reading in. I should read more, but I read obsessively. And every single book, I find a pearl or several pearls, which I then will transfer to my current knowledge base and interpret it based on my view of blue oceans, mental toughness. So the book that I have now is an accumulation of all those pearls. And the book I wrote in 2008, when I first wrote one, is not even resembling what I write now. I've moved on. So it is, yes, books I read all the time. It is my most important information. And then I test it. I try it on my business. I try it on myself. And most of all, I try and be scientifically acceptable, verifiable. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. And Steve, I suppose then sort of you've partly answered my next question from that. And at this stage, what are there any relevant books that you think immediately relevant in terms of reading at the moment that you can, or is it all these books that you think are worthwhile having a read at this stage?
In the book I'm sending you, I reference all the books I've read right up to the moment. So it's easier for you to then see which one addresses your current circumstance. But there's a healthy reading list there. I also like to read novels, and I'm currently writing a second novel. So it's only to keep myself sane. And it's harder to write a novel than a book on mental toughness because I've got to have a storyline.
Amazing. And so I'm just looking at some of the questions now. I'm just trying to go through them now, Steve, because there's loads of comments just saying, thank you very much. I feel like going to the gym right now. Brilliant comparison and points to learn from and develop ourselves from. Today's presentation goes back to the school of thought that when the brain is working, your body will listen. What do you think about that, Steve?
Yes. You know, I'm very much a mind-body, I think if I got your question right there.
Yes.
Interactive person. But the one, doesn't matter which one, will drive the other. You start exercising, it will help your brain. You think clearer, think better. You start reading more, you'd be a fool not to exercise. So the two drive each other. And mental health, and I've got a separate presentation on mental health, it's a massive problem. And if you can just get in touch with what are the signs, what are the symptoms of mental health, how do you try and head it off at the pass, as it were, if you're sort of cowboy analogy. And so I've got several areas that mind, body, particularly the mental health thing, is important to me.
Brilliant. Thanks, Steve. I think we'll come back to that actually, just to dissect it a little bit more. But I've got a question from Pete here, and he says, Steve, what were your biggest learnings when working with the Springbok rugby team a few years ago?
Well, that's interesting because when I first worked with them, I think it was humility, because Mona du Plessis invited me to do some work with the Springboks. And I remember going into the team room and kind of thinking I can tell them a thing or two. And when I was faced with those people, Francois Pienaar, Chester Williams, I was totally gobsmacked. And I remember starting the presentation by saying, do you have any questions? Which is silly of me. And they just looked at me. But eventually, someone piped up on the left of the room in a sort of Joburg accent and says, yeah, but I've got a question. Who the hell died leaving you in charge? Boy, did I learn humility. So that's the first lesson. I learned more than they did.
What was your response? What did you say?
I left the room. Thank you for that. But my comment now is rest in peace, James Small.
Oh, sure. Brilliant.
Yeah.
All right, just lots more great talk, Steve. Thank you so much. Inspiring. Thank you coming through. Then Marissa's got an interesting question here, Steve. She says, if you're at a crossroads in your business, how do you choose what to read?
How do you choose?
What to read. I think she's looking for some inspirational direction. She's saying, if you're
Blue
at
Ocean
the crossroads.
Strategy. Blue Ocean Strategy, without a doubt. Without a doubt. You know, when you look at, they did a Chan Kim, the author, and we did it at ETA ages ago, a Blue Ocean Strategies thing, and we need to do it again, workshop. And they did a workshop with the Luzerne Bone China Company. They wanted more sales. They make bone china, cups, crockery, stuff. So they spend days working out what they should eliminate, what they should reduce, what they should create, what they should magnify in their business. Ultimately, they came up with one change, and that was get rid of the bones in bone china. What? No, get it out, especially the pig bones. So they called it New Bone China. And now the Luzerne Bone China Company dominates every hotel in the world because they're halal. No one else is halal.
Wow.
So Blue Ocean strategy.
Amazing. I think I'm going to go and get that one and have a read myself. Steve, there's another question here from Fatima, and I think it's with regards to ETA, and she obviously picked up with what you were saying around the direction that ETA are going with your degrees. And she says, will ETA offer a sports science degree in the future? If so,
yes.
How will it compare to the degrees from other reputed institutions?
It will be, we'll have an accredited degree as they are. It'll be the latest research, innovative, but we like to claim our differentiating factor is you'll do more practical with us. We will make you sweat. You will learn the stuff organically as well as academically. Same level of degree. So right now, sport management's in place. Bachelor of Exercise is coming up in a year. It's been accredited. You've just got to get through the hoops, and the government makes you jump through hoops. And yes, we'll have the more sports science. Yeah, it'll all be there. I have to keep ahead of the trend. I have to go to Blue Oceans. I love certificates and diplomas. We'll keep doing it. We'll actually go down as well, but we're going to go up into degrees. The Bachelor of Exercise, yeah, we'll roll it out in 2022, in fact.
So I was just going to say, Steve, it sounds like you're going to have a full spectrum, right, from introductory certificate all the way up to, higher degree qualifications as well.
And we'll make sure that the bulk of it is available online. Obviously you're going to have to do practical somewhere, but we don't want to be trapped in the past where you're sitting in a classroom listening to someone spread the joy and the knowledge and you just suck it up. No. We're going to make you read and reference and do and meet all the academic standards.
Yeah, I think from how you've presented and what you've referenced now, we can definitely see the sort of the approach, the wide red approach. And that also just sort of leads us in the next comment, adaptation and constantly reinventing ourselves, especially as we get older, is key. Thanks for the uplifting talk. So that's just a message of thanks there. I'm seeing lots more messages coming through. So Steve, we've got 15 minutes. Are you happy for me to just carry on with the questions for now?
I'm yours. I'll have grandchildren back soon, so they'll be running in front of the screen. But as soon as you see grandchildren, my time is somewhat up.
Amazing. So, and it must be quite a special time, actually, in a way, for you to be spending such quality time with your grandchildren.
It is. I'm learning a lot of lessons in terms of grandparenting. Like, it's not my rules that count, and I must adapt.
Amazing. So just more sort of comments, I think, on some of your points that you made here, Steve. Most think that fitness professionals don't read much. How does reading influence your personal strategy? I think we have sort of covered that.
Pretty much. It's big. It's huge. It's absolutely. And the more you read, the more when your client speaks to you, you can reference something decent rather than Facebook. Yeah,
definitely. So, Steve, I've got a question here, and I can't remember which one it was, but it's from Wendy Smith, and she says, please explain the slide of the mountaineer.
The mountaineer?
Yes.
Okay, so you've seen another. I didn't remember using one, but I do use a mountaineer slide. I'm trying to think when I had a mountaineer. Okay, but the mountaineer slide is basically in my talks, my live talks, that the majority of mountaineers who get killed die on a mountain, die on the way down because they've lost concentration, they've achieved their goal. So you've got to retain your concentration, you've got to retain your focus, otherwise you're going down. I'm just slipping through the slides.
Amazing. So yeah, I couldn't remember it either, to be honest, but I think that's a good analogy and takeaway, and perhaps it was somewhere else. Steve, so here's a couple of practical questions which are popping up. And the first one here says, and maybe you can just give us your thoughts on it. What drives group exercise classes? Is it personal looks of the instructor? How they present the classes? What do you think is important in building up class numbers? So there's a few questions in there.
I think it's technique. I think it's excitement. You know, you don't have to be wonderfully good looking, and I can attest to that, to be successful. But you've got to be unique. People have got to see you as either incredibly knowledgeable or innovative in your class or your music. I think with group exercise, it helps to somewhat look the part, but we break the mold all the time. You know, so and I'm not happy at the moment with the level of group exercise, even from my college. We must entertain. Those people have come for a show. You're competing against Netflix, Tiger, something or other.
Well said, Steve. I think that's a really good analogy. We as Kerry would say, we're competing for that third space. You know, not home, not work. The third space you normally go to. And that ties into that very well. And
if you're like me, don't ever give group exercise classes because I fall over my feet.
So know your strength is what you're trying to say. Amazing. Then Lucas says, thank you very much for your motivation, Steve. As a personal training life coach, I find by building mental toughness, you can move mountains and find light through the current crisis. Thank you very much. So that's just a real thank you from him. And I think we've also answered this, but I'll just confirm again. Will all the books that Dr. Harris mentioned in this presentation be added to the email that will be sent to us from Virgin Active? It's in his book. The list is in his book, and we're going to be sending the book out in PDF format. We're not going to be sharing all of the books, I'm afraid. We don't have a budget for that, not that I'm aware of, Steve. So, but you will be referencing the books in your book. Correct. Amazing. So yeah, and Lucas says here, I'd recommend a book called, and it's actually one that I'm very familiar with. It was back in the day when I was studying sports science, In Pursuit of Excellence by Terry Orlick. Steve, you familiar with it? It's also a good psychology book.
Loved it. I absolutely loved it. I don't recall. That's the problem with becoming senile. You forget stuff. And your name again? But nevertheless, I remember the title, and it's endless. And that's where the fund of knowledge sits in the books. It doesn't sit on Facebook, even though it's called Facebook. It's not a book, and it's often fake. But get yourself a decent book and get yourself a Kindle, because like I do, there are so many words you don't know what on earth that word is. But with the Kindle, you put your finger on it, and it tells you.
Amazing. And I think this is an unintended direction that this talk and set of questions and answers has gone, is how we acquire knowledge. And obviously the book is coming up as a tried and tested manner, and not fake news or stuff shared over social media, but actually sort of research, well put together, well published information or stories via a good old fashioned book. You can't bypass that, I suppose.
I did say it in the talk, but what I've cottoned onto is that we brought in by this veneer, this crust of rationality that some people use, but they're just masking a molten core of crazy. Don't go down there.
Absolutely. So from Johan, our national swim coach, he says, what do you think the fitness norm will look like in the next few years, Steve? So I'm guessing the direction of fitness for you, where do you see that going?
I just see it incrementally improving. I see us getting back to a social environment where we can compete against. I think fitness is huge and will stay huge. We're physical creatures, and I think competitiveness will be maintained. And hopefully competitiveness with humility. I tell the story of my grandson who said, Steve, that's what he calls me. He had humility knocked into his head, I hope. Says, the more I train, the slower the other boys get. So
he's the new Gary Player, huh? Sounds like it.
In one fortnight at this stage.
And then just a couple of additional comments, Steve. I studied through ETA. Their work and content is amazing. So a big endorsement there from Meryl.
Oh, thank you. It's a moving feast too. Like probably you and me, if we look at ourselves and our knowledge and our capacity 10 years ago, I hope we're very different people now. ETA is very different now.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Jordan says, cannot wait for the sports science degree. Look forward to it. What a great talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bridget has asked, what is the process in order, just sticking with the ETA theme, Steve, sorry, what is the process in order to convert our certificates to degrees? And I don't know if there's a short answer for that. I don't want to pick up too much time.
It's get hold of your local campus, tell them what you got, and you either get RPL'd or credit transfers. It depends on what you did, when you did it, but you're always accommodated. So, it's always a way. And you don't have to be an ETA graduate. We love our position, we respect them, and I mean that sincerely. And anyone with any qualification can come along and say, hey, I've got this, what can I do with it? Can I scaffold? So that's the answer.
Great to know. Thanks very much, Steve. So again, just lots of thank you, Steve. Appreciate your time. Really great webinar, Steve and Deon. Thank you. Inspiring and uplifting from Anthea. I think I see a few ETA students here, actually. Sharon Levine says, thank you, Steve, for continuing to inspire us over many, many years. I don't know what she's talking about. I mean, spring chickens, aren't we all? Thank you so much from Ingrid. Have to leave to teach my gym yoga class via Zoom. So there's someone who's adapting. Britt saying, I don't know, following something she's referring to you, Deon. Thank you, Deon. Okay, great. The Mountaineer. So apparently the Mountaineer is me. And the Mountaineer is Deon's profile pic.
Oh, my word, yes, he's great.
My profile pic. Sorry, that's I was just doing a trail run. So thanks, Deon. Okay, great.
See, we screwed that up, didn't we?
I did, but I still think it was great. I think it still was a great analogy. Okay. So no, I'm not a mountaineer, guys. I was just doing a trail run.
You have to climb some mountains.
I have to climb some mountains. I'm really just trying to scroll down to get to, because there's obviously lots of people having lots of fun with that one. A bit of humor. So I'm glad I could make people smile. Thank you. I agree. As group training instructors, you're effectively on a stage, and I miss it. Look forward to the book. All right. Here's a question from Megan. How can one differentiate arrogance from confidence, and how does one do this personally? Understanding the need that you do not know everything is hard for a lot of people to do.
I think it's a very thin veneer, sadly, because it's in the eye of the beholder. So when the beholder looks at you, and you, as the lovely word in Afrikaans, they will see you as arrogant. However, if you can back your boasts, it's just confidence. You've got to have the integrity to do what you say you can do, and then you're not arrogant. But if you can't do it, I'm afraid you're arrogant. I've
decided to join the party so you can see the Mountaineer. So I'm just in the screen there. All right, here's a question from Justin Clark, and I think that this is an interesting one, and one that we can unpack a little bit. With a lot of personal trainers now offering online training, what differentiators are effective?
Well, again, can you entertain online? You've got to, and I saw one of your Claremont guys, Richard, online. He was amazing. He was light. He was fun. You could follow him easily. So you got to make a difference. You got to look the part, be the part, entertain. And I haven't got weights at home, so you've got to find ways of making me exercise in a space that's doable. So it's creativity again. Move to blue oceans. Sit there. What is blue oceans? What must I stop doing? What must I do less of? What must I do more of? What must I create? At ETA, I had to create degrees.
Absolutely, Steve. And I think that, I've been reflecting on that type of question a little bit, because obviously part of my role is to support people and help develop them as personal trainers. And just my answer to that is, and I, you can shoot me down or agree with me, I don't know, but it's not a world of difference way to what you would do when I say normal, the old normal. In a business, what differentiates you as a trainer out on the floor? It's the way that you approach things. It's your creativity. It's your charisma. It's your, like you were saying during your presentation, how you put yourself out there, how you work harder than everyone else. Those are all the things. And whether it's face to face or whether it's in the digital world, similar things, same thing.
Similar, yeah. And we'll discover as well, Deon, as we go on. Like I'll review this webinar and say, oh my word, did you really say that? And
yeah. So learning and being open to the fact that you learn all the time, every experience. So just lots more saying thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. Gave me some more encouragement. Kimo from Cape Town. Thank you very much. From a 2013 student, looking forward to the introduction of the degree. Viv Turks, thanks so much for a great webinar, Steve. Huge pearls of wisdom, embracing our circumstances, applying change to be effective. Have to leave to teach a Priggy Pilates. I say she has to leave to teach a Priggy Pilates class. And it's amazing that we've actually got so many people who have to skip off and go to their online clients. I mean, it's just having a look through this and scrolling through it, it's incredible how adaptive we have been already, and we can only build on this.
Deon, and being online isn't blue oceans anymore.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the norm. No, it's a new norm.
Yeah.
So saying here, thanks, Steve, again, really great session. Lots and lots of thank yous. I'm just scrolling down all the way. All right, I think at the moment, that's pretty much what we've covered in terms of questions. One's just popping up. Got to leave to teach some flow yoga, sorry, from Dina. So again, slow yoga, flow yoga.
All good. Love yoga.
It's all developing. Yeah, absolutely. But guys, I think we've got maybe 1 or 2 more minutes. If there are any additional questions, please post them up. Lots of people looking forward to the book. Yeah, there's someone who says, oh, there was a question, sorry, and I scrolled past it, but I did want to pose it to you, Steve, and it was from someone who was asking, and I can't find it right now, so I'm going to just try and ask it from memory, but basically it was around their son or daughter, or I think it was their son, was quite a good football player. It seems like finished school and has picked up quite a serious injury, and they're trying to navigate through the possibility of supporting them through this injury and allowing this son to follow their passion and pursue football, or should they be encouraging the education side and saying, okay, you had to go at this football side of things, now it's time to focus on education? How would you deal with that, Steve?
I would deal with it by, my family know my repetitive nature here. I don't believe in living in an or world. I don't want my cake and not eat it. I want my cake and eat it. Your son must pursue his passion of sport and study. It's possible. Do both. You're only young once and your life is short. Do both. It's not all.
I think that's sound advice here, Steve. One more question. I think I'm going to leave it at the last question. It's actually just closing out with one relevant to eat here. Francis wants to know, what will the duration of study be when pursuing the degree course?
It's a 3-year, 360 credit program, of which you may or may not RPL or have credit transfers. So it's 3 years, whether you study it full-time or online. The amount of time spent in studying is the same. The benefit of online will be that you can continue your normal work. I mean, my studies, after my initial sortie into Stellenbosch University in the 60s, have all been part-time or online, and I continued working while doing it. So you'll take 3 years and we'll get the credits out of you. We'll coach you. We'll help you. That'll be 3 years.
Amazing. Great. Thanks so much, Steve. I'm going to leave it there. We're at 4 o'clock exactly, so we've had our quality hour. But from my side, Steve, thanks so much for agreeing to come on here and give us a presentation. I think some amazing pearls of wisdom. I love how you structured it. All of that information available as part of the book that we will be sharing out this evening once I've received it. I think testament is the literally hundreds of thank you comments that people have received. And clearly we have a huge amount of ETA students, Steve, because there's a lot of people that have, alluded to the fact that they studied with the ETA, and it shows you the impact that you've had on a lot of people that work within Virgin Active. So thank you for
today. Can I comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
I tried to give this presentation a few days ago on my own with Vanessa watching, my daughter Vanessa, actress, and she ripped me apart. The "you sucks" wasn't COVID-19, it was me. You suck, Dad. And she rejigged the entire presentation. So a big thanks to Vanessa.
Amazing. Thank you, Vanessa. As I said, from a PowerPoint perspective, I think I'm going to chat to you, and maybe we need to do a bit of a deal on some of our presentations going forward. So watch this space and watch out for an email from myself. But in closing, Steve, a huge appreciation from Virgin Active for the role that you've played in presenting to us today. And at some stage, it would be lovely to catch up again, and maybe we can talk about a different topic. But we look forward to getting the book, sending it out to the guys, sharing it, and thank you for everything that you have done for the industry to date. We really do appreciate it, and we feel the impact that it's had on us. So I'm going to leave you with those words, and thanks everyone for watching and tuning in. Just a reminder, we've got 2 more webinars this week. Tomorrow we're speaking to Jenna Challenor, who's going to be with us from KZN. She's an endurance and marathon runner, for a South African marathon runner. And we're going to chat to her about the training that she's done or not done during lockdown, some of the challenges she's had to face, and her thoughts on where sport and competition are going to be going into the future. So it's going to be really interesting. And then on Thursday, we've got a really interesting talk, and it's around adjusting your train of thought from a wellness perspective, and being more deliberate in how you apply certain coping mechanisms to anxiety and stress. And that's by a lady by the name of Melanie Godfrey. And she's going to be, she's a psychologist here in Cape Town, and she's going to be giving up her time to just give us some really practical guidance and advice around that specific topic. So really looking forward to those. And I'll be sharing throughout the course of this week. We've got some amazing speakers like Steve and like the ones that we've had over the last couple of weeks in the pipelines for the rest of this week, and obviously for next week as well, but I will share that a little bit later in the week. But looking forward to hosting you really soon again. And until then, goodbye, look after yourself, stay safe, and remember, #, guys, we've got this. Cheers, Steve. Thanks a lot.
Cheers. Thank you.